Hey guys, you're listening to Out There with Alex. This week we're going to be talking about alcohol and other drugs with our special guest Julia Clarke, who is a youth alcohols and drug worker at Cobaw, and Maz and Lasey from WayOut. Julia, can you tell us more about what you do at Cobaw?
Yeah, sure. So I am the youth drug and alcohol counsellor here, as you said. And I work with young people between the ages of 12 and 25. And yeah, generally I just, I guess, try and keep things pretty informal at the start. It's a catch-up, find out what's going on with the young person and do a bit of an assessment to see where they're at with their drug and alcohol use. I guess people have different levels of dependency. People use drugs for different reasons. So it's trying to find out, I guess, people's reasons for use and the impact that drug and alcohol use has on their lives, and trying to address the different issues that are coming up for them in their lives. And it might be mental health related stuff, it could be family stuff. So a bit of an overview.
Cool. Before we jump into the questions, what do you do, Lacey?
I'm a student here on placement. I'm doing a diploma of community service at the Bendigo TAFE, so I've been helping Maz out in the WayOut program. That's about it.
What does Maz do? What do you do?
Oh, well, I'm here at the WayOut program, which is a program that supports LGBTI young people in the Macedon Ranges and beyond. So if you don't know what LGBTIQ is, it stands for lesbian, gay, bi, trans, intersex and queer. So it's for sex and gender diverse young people. And we also work with adults as well in the Macedon Ranges.
Cool. So now that we've got to know each other, we are going to ask a few questions about drug and alcohol. So, what is the most common drug?
Well, overall for young people and adults, it is alcohol and tobacco as well. And then I think coming in after that would be marijuana, weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, alcohol and tobacco are the two drugs that cause the highest burden of disease in Australia, so they're the two most harmful, I guess.
So what do you mean, Julia, by burden of disease? How would you
So they're the drugs that are associated with certain diseases, lung cancer, bowel cancer, liver cancer, things like that, there's a direct correlation between the drug use and the disease, which creates a strain on, I guess, the health system.
What is an addiction?
So that's a good question too. So I guess people can become addicted to lots of different things, including, gambling, food, all kinds of things. With drug and alcohol, I like to, I guess, look at things in terms of dependency. So, people use drugs for all different reasons, but I guess when somebody starts to kind of depend on a substance to get by or need to use it daily, if they start to have strong cravings, withdrawal symptoms when they stop using it, then you're kind of going into dependence territory. So that's when it can become a problem, I guess, if you're having to use more and more and more, and you build up a tolerance so that you have to continue to use more and more to get the same effect as you did before. And then once you're at that stage where you're dependent on a drug, there can be a whole range of other issues that come from that, which, it might stop you from doing what you would normally be expected to do, like getting to work, going to school, being able to function. It might impact your relationships and a range of different things. Generally, the dependence is kind of a physical dependence, and it can also be a psychological dependence on the substance as well, especially if you're using it as a coping mechanism for mental health issues or stress, things like that.
So do you see many, like really young people that have addictions? So what would be the youngest person you would say, they've actually got an addiction?
That's a good question. I think dependence can really start at any age. Like I know I've seen young people that, started smoking marijuana, drinking alcohol at the age of 12, 13. And often when young people start using drugs or drinking at that young age, there's often maybe a family history of trauma. They might have been through, some traumatic things in their lives, and or it might be that other people in their family are using, like parents are using alcohol and it's kind of normalised, or so I guess dependence can start at any age. It's when you start using a substance regularly that can occur.
So say someone is dependent on something, where can they get help? Or where can you send a friend to get help?
That's a really good question. So in the Macedon Ranges, it is a good thing to kind of check in with the GP and kind of let them know what's going on for you. The GP can refer to us, so to me. So at the moment, I'm the only youth drug and alcohol counsellor at Cobaw, which is where we work. We do have other drug and alcohol counsellors who see adults, but they can also see young people. So if I can't see that young person, then there's someone else that can. I can also link young people into other services, like if they need to go to detox, to withdraw from a substance, or if they need to go to rehab. So there's day programs that people can go to where they can still live at home and then go each day to a kind of rehab program, or there's rehab that's more long term that people can go and live in a house or a community for a certain amount of time to kind of recover from the dependence. So so in terms of where, like in the Macedon Ranges, I'm kind of the only drug and alcohol counsellor, but there's also, if a young person wants to see the wellbeing team at school, if they're at school, that's also a good place to start, and then that they can be linked to us from school. I guess it's just about kind of telling someone about the problem and then being kind of referred to the right place. And if a young person's also unsure of whether they have a problem, there's a really good website. It's YODA, so that is YODAA. And it's like a information for young people and families around drug and alcohol. And there's actually like an online kind of test thing you can do where you can go through a number of questions around your drug and alcohol use, and it will actually tell you whether you might need to speak to someone or whether you need a bit of extra help. So if you're not sure, it's a really good place to start as well.
So Alex, who would you recommend your friends to go and see? Not necessarily specific names, but
probably a doctor
would be your first port of call. Do you think your friends would go to a GP?
If I could try and talk them into it, probably, like go in with them to make it not seem as scary.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Talk for them if they need it.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, sometimes that's really scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first step is hard sometimes, Yeah,
and going by yourself can be really scary. Just another question, Julia. So, if someone did come to see you, does that mean you're going to say to them, like, get off the drugs, like, stop drinking?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I think a lot of people are scared to come to drug and alcohol counselling because they might not be quite ready, and they might not be interested in quitting. They might just want to reduce, or they might just want to maybe look at some of the issues going on in their lives to start with. So definitely I come in with more of a harm minimisation approach. So I'm not going to tell anyone to stop doing anything. It's completely the young person's choice. I can provide them with information about that substance, and so they can make an informed decision. And often we kind of I work with a model called the Stages of Change, and it kind of looks at people kind of can come into different stages when they're with any kind of behaviour change. So they can be in a stage where they're completely not really contemplating change at all, and then they can move into pre-contemplation, which is often when maybe they might make contact with a service because they're just contemplating, they're thinking about making the change. And then after that they might move into an action stage where they're actually thinking, okay, now I'm going to really do something about it, and that's when they're planning and working on strategies and maybe working on a relapse prevention plan, things like that. And then once people make that change, then they're in a more of a maintenance stage. But then at the same time, once they're in maintenance, they can slip back to using again and kind of go back to the start. So it's, people kind of move around the cycle, and I work with people wherever they're at within that cycle. And it's completely non-judgmental.
So Alex is looking at me funny. He's about to cough, so I'm asking the next question. We talk about alcohol. What constitutes alcohol when we talk? Because I know there's different. There's like liquor and there's beer and there's wine. So what are we talking about when we're talking about alcohol?
Well, alcohol is a depressant drug. So that means it doesn't mean it makes you depressed. It can, but it means that it acts on the central nervous system and it kind of slows you down. So it slows down your responses, your heart rate, your breathing, your mind. Can kind of loosen up the inhibitions, that kind of stuff. So there are positive effects and negative, obviously, as well. And it's actually kind of, I think what's in it is ethanol. So I think they used to kind of run cars off ethanol, so it's not not particularly good for you. But in small amounts, it's okay. It's fine. But I think at the moment, the recommended amount of alcohol is around 2 standard drinks a night, 5 nights a week, and then 2 nights a week with no alcohol at all. And binge drinking is 4+ standard drinks, so 4 or more, which surprises some people because they might be like, oh no, I drink 6 and it's fine. But yeah, it's 4 or more because that's a damaging level, I guess.
So is there a difference between, say, spirits, wine and beer?
So beer is the basic, what you get after yeast and other additives for flavour. Spirits is more refined, so you get rid of those extras and it's more towards a pure ethanol substance. And
The one that you can run your car on.
Yeah.
What are the side effects of long-term alcohol abuse?
So I don't have my chart in front of me. I usually have a little chart with the human body and all the different things that can happen. But it can
paint a picture.
Long-term use can cause a number of different health issues. So it can impact your liver, your kidney, your heart, all your organs really, because you basically, I guess, long-term heavy use, you're poisoning yourself really, and it puts a huge strain on your liver. So it can cause cancer, like stomach cancer, liver cancer, things like that. It can also cause brain damage over time. It can actually impact memory and brain function, cognitive ability, and it can also impact mental health as well. So over time it's linked with depression, anxiety and things like that. So and it could also, in terms of, I think for men and women can cause some issues with sexual function and stuff like that too, which is not ideal. So,
no.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about the stages of change, do you think people realise when they're overusing alcohol in particular, because it's so... now, once again, Alex is really shaking his head. So what are you thinking, Alex, about that?
I have been to a lot of parties and seen a lot of this myself. They're disassociated with themselves when they get to a certain stage of inebriation. And they just stop realising that they're drinking alcoholic beverages and they see it as just a drink.
So once they've had, are you saying once they've had a couple, they're not even aware of how many, once they keep drinking, they just keep drinking? Yeah.
That's also the memory loss that Julia was talking about. You don't remember at worst case scenarios.
Yeah, and I think we've got a real culture of drinking in Australia. It's very socially acceptable and almost encouraged. I know when I catch up with certain groups of friends, it's kind of if you're not drinking, it's what's wrong with you? And there's a bit of peer pressure and things like that.
Absolutely.
I guess the different kind of... And culture can exist in different subgroups. Can be your family. I know some families are big on drinking and other families not so much. So that can really influence... your perception of your own drinking, so whether if it's normalised or not, whether it's kind of okay in one group to drink a lot and in another it's not.
We've got a bit of a reputation, Aussies, liking a drink, but also, that turning 18, it becomes legal, and it's really interesting to me because I work with a lot of young people, and the first thing they want to do or say they would like to do is get drunk when they're 18, and so it's actually, let's have a little chat about this, what's that going to do?
And it can, alcohol can actually impact brain development in young people, because for young people your brains are still developing up to about the age of 25, so I think for guys maybe 25, for girls it may be a bit younger, and but I think that's why it's recommended that people under 18 don't drink alcohol at all. But I think also for people in that bracket between 18 and 25 it can be damaging as well. So
because there's that myth that they say, if we just give you a little bit of alcohol, you'll learn to drink responsibly. So what do you think about that, Alex?
That's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works. Do you want to talk about that?
It still damages your brain. It's not like other drugs. You can't build up an immunity to it. The lightweight and heavyweight drinking myth, kind of, because it does exist, but it's not how much you can drink, it's your physique which can determine that. So it's not really about little drink here, little drink there. It's just don't.
Yeah, so it affects different people differently.
Yeah.
And also, is this correct, Julia, that if you do, as young kids get used to it, then they get used to the taste and they're more likely to drink later. So maybe they drink less, but they're actually getting used to the taste. So part of the suggestion is if you don't even drink until you're 18, you don't get that kind of taste for it, you know.
Yeah, because I think for some people who try alcohol, they're kind of a bit like, ooh, gross. Like, especially spirits, it might be like, I don't want that. But if you're used to it at a young age, you're used to that taste. And
so it's an interesting culture that we're in, isn't it? It's and it's tricky if you want to feel like a part of it. And I don't know, Alex, if you feel that peer pressure, do you ever?
Kinda, but I'm like, I know I'm in control of what I drink. I only normally, like, if I go to a party, I normally only have about one drink, if that. And yeah.
Go you.
yeah, good self-control.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't see a point in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Mez was just pointing at the next question. I can answer that, but I'll ask the next
Go on.
one.
You
go for it.
You can answer it.
How do you help an intoxicated person sober up?
Okay.
I have a little trick. So say they were drinking spirits, and they're like gone. Just give them water. I've done that before. I've just given them cups of water to say that it's alcohol. Like, I was at a friend's party. And they actually had, it was their 18th, and they had two separate punch bowls. One was alcoholic, one was not. They looked the exact same. The only difference was two little notes that said non-alcoholic and alcoholic. So if there was some person that was out of it, the parents would cut them off, obviously, but of course the parents would go, so I'd just swap them while they went to get a drink, so they'd grab the non-alcoholic stuff and then swap it back.
Aren't you
good work. Very
clever.
But you're right, I think it's really smart. Giving someone water is a really good idea because alcohol is a diuretic, which means it dehydrates you. So when you're drinking a lot, you're not drinking any water, and it's actually dehydrating your body, and dehydration's bad for you. So yeah, water is helpful. And I think in terms of helping someone sober up, it's really time. Like, they just need to sober up, stop drinking. Eating food's not going to help them sober up faster, but it could help them to kind of have something else in their stomach.
It's supposed to help you, isn't it, that if you eat like a big, like a greasy meal or something, it's supposed to help you.
And I think eating before drinking, so if you know you're going to be drinking, like, to eat before, because alcohol is going to get into your bloodstream quicker if you haven't had any food, and that's when you can get drunk really fast, which some people want, but I'm saying it's dangerous, so it's better to eat and to drink water throughout the night as well, like if you are drinking, to space it out with water.
And
or have a water bottle.
Is it possible you probably drink less because you feel kind of full, and so maybe that might help you drink less? I don't know.
Yeah, to kind of pace yourself. And
I have a handy little app called Recoverthol, which tracks drinks. Recoverthol is a brand so the cause of hangovers is because your liver can't process it fast enough. The Recoverthol is a little vial that you add into a drink, and it gives you those enzymes, and it covers you for about 6 drinks.
Okay.
And so for some people it stops hangovers, for others it doesn't, but it really depends. Not advertising, because it's 6 drink, it's binge drinking, don't do it.
Yeah.
But there is a add a drink function, which, like, it gives you all the different types of alcohol, like white wine, red wine,
Beautiful.
Champagne, like.
So it teaches you about standard drinks.
Drink, like 300 mils at 5%, which is not a standard drink. So
because I think it's a myth. People think like one drink equals one standard drink, but there's often multiple standard drinks in a drink.
And so say we take cruises or like that thing of beer, that's 600 mil. That's a standard drink. The app has 300 mils at 5% is a standard drink. So you actually need to put 2 in.
So if you had one of those cruiser things, those like lolly drinks, I think they are.
That's one.
That's more than one standard drink?
That is one standard drink.
Oh, that is one standard drink.
And
lots of sugar.
But it's 600 mils, so this is only a 300 mil register.
Oh, I see.
So you'd have to use 2 on the app. But you say you add it, you can have it now, 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, or in an X amount of time. So say I'm having it now, it asks for the Recoverthol. It gives you an estimated time of sobering and how many standard drinks you've had.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and especially
So what's it called? Recoverthol?
Recoverthol.
Recoverthol. Is it RECOVER?
Yep.
THOL.
THOL.
Cool.
Yeah, I
Worth
saw it on the
checking out.
news a while ago.
That's
There's a thing that stops hangovers. I'm like, sure. Checks out.
It sounds
Very
better
cool.
than just stopping hangovers. It looks like it could help you prevent you from drinking too much.
Yeah.
Smart
Like,
drinking.
Yeah, smart drinking. Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
what is alcohol poisoning? Like, it damages you, but how? What is alcohol poisoning?
I guess it's just a level of toxicity in your body that you can't process. Like, so your liver's unable to process the amount of ethanol that's in your body, and then I guess you can have an overdose from that. So your body's basically just rejecting the poison you're putting in.
And so what are the symptoms if someone has alcohol poisoning or perhaps that they've just they've overdone it? So what might you notice in somebody that's done that?
Yeah, so there can be multiple symptoms and kind of slurring words, passing out, kind of saying things they wouldn't normally do. Like, you can kind of tell, like, I don't know if you've had any friends or noticed anyone in that state before. But if someone,
Alex is nodding for those people that can't see him.
yeah, and I think it's, if your friend passes out and you can't wake them up, then call for an ambulance because they could be overdosing. And also it's good to maybe roll them on their side because if they are going to vomit, you need to have that airway cleared so they can, they're not going to choke.
So that's the recovery position is really important, isn't it? So something friends can do, being a really good friend, is putting if someone's unconscious, definitely ringing 000 first of all, but putting them in recovery position.
Yeah,
I've heard of quite a few cases of people that's changed, they've saved their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people may be scared to call 000 because they're worried they're going to get in trouble with the police. But the ambulance, they work separately. Their goal is to help you and to save you. So you're not going to get in trouble.
And get you on the phone. they ask basic questions like just be calm.
So it sounds like you've rung 000 before.
Twice.
Twice, okay.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to tell the story if you don't want to, but the experience of ringing 000.
First time it was because it was a friend, and I was just like, okay, because I was talking to them. But then the second time I wasn't talking to my friend, so I was a bit more stressed.
Okay.
But
and were they helpful on the phone?
Oh yeah, they were helpful. It was mainly just where would you like the ambulance and what kind of situation is it? And because I had to. One, it was for someone interstate, and the other one was a couple of towns away. So I had to It's different if you're there because they'll be like, oh, do this, do that. They'll help you through it. Like you can know nothing, and they'll help you through what to do. Now, jumping on to drugs as an umbrella term, what is a drug? Like, what are drugs?
Yeah. What are we talking
what
about?
What are drugs? That's a good question. I guess they're chemical substances that can, or natural substances that can, alter your physiology, your state of mind.
So because we hear a lot, don't we, about there's sort of like illicit drugs that are illegal, and then there's also kind of the drugs that you get through the doctor and from the chemist. I'm just throwing this one in, Alex, if that's all right with you.
That's fine.
So which ones do you think cause the most kind of problem in society, or is it just like a different issue, or is it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, if you you watch the news, you kind of anything the media is releasing, you think, it's ice, like this kind of idea that there's this epidemic of ice. It's actually the drugs that cause the most harm or overdoses are prescription drugs. So the most recent kind of report that's come out around overdoses shows that there are more overdoses from prescription medications than any other drug.
Wow.
So things like opiates, pain medication, benzos, things like that, sedatives that are actually quite harmful if taken in large amounts and with other substances. So mixing two depressant drugs can be really dangerous. So if you're drinking alcohol and then you take painkiller like an opioid, they're both downers, they're both depressants. So it can actually put strain on your heart and lungs. Your heart can stop. So, it's interesting because, definitely the prescription drugs are the most harmful.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And do you think it's because we're kind of like part of a bit of a quick fix society? We think, we should be able to just take a pill and that should solve the problem?
Yeah, and I think also people taking prescription drugs, that they don't think it's a problem because it's something that's maybe been prescribed, but often they might be abusing that substance, so they're not taking it within a prescription, they're taking more and more, or they might be accessing stuff from a home chemist. So I think that, the dark web, people can access drugs made by a home chemist, which are really dangerous as well, because you don't actually know what's in that drug. Like they might say it's this, but it's not exactly that at all, and it's not safe. It hasn't been tested.
Do you reckon people work up a bit of a what should I say? So they take a certain amount, then it's not working for their pain, and so they just keep taking more. But they kind of like self-diagnose, or they go into Dr. Google, just go, oh yeah, well I need to have this, and so I need to take more of this. And
yeah, exactly. And it's almost like not being able to tolerate pain, feeling like you need that substance to be able to manage it, and you do build up a tolerance. So it can be difficult. I mean, all different kinds of drugs. Whether it's legal or illegal, they're harmful if you're taking them. Yeah, you're taking large amounts.
Next question was, why do people use drugs? But I think we covered that with the pain relief and peer
and
pressure.
There's multiple reasons for people to use, and often it's like, for enhancement as well. Like some people just like to go to a party and they want to enhance their experience. For some people, it's they're using it as, I guess, a coping mechanism to kind of get rid of uncomfortable feelings and thoughts.
So social anxiety, for example.
Yeah, I think social anxiety really is linked with higher drug use, because it's you're going into a social situation, you're feeling really anxious, and that helps you to kind of cope with that anxiety in the moment.
So what else could they do? Like, what would you do? I mean, do you get that, Alex? Do you get anxiety and worry about if you're going to a party where you don't know anyone? What would you do to kind of, because it sounds like you're pretty good at controlling your drinking. So what would you do if you're feeling anxious going into something like that?
If I don't know people at a party, I don't go.
Well, there you go.
Or if I have one friend, I probably don't go.
Okay. So you just make sure it's a safe environment for you.
Yeah, because I do float between groups from time to time, so if it's like one person from a group that's like, I want to say heavy drinkers, but like not really, like people who use those sorts of substances, I'm like not really inclined to go.
Fair enough. I think that's good, knowing your boundaries. I think that's really awesome. Because I think some people, they want to go to parties, but they're too scared and they think the drink is going to solve it. So is it a solution, Julia, or what would you suggest for people that have got social anxiety, want to socialise, and they're saying the only way I can do it is by drinking? What would you do if you're working with a young person around?
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one. Like if I was working with someone around anxiety, it's about kind of, I guess, skilling people up with different kinds of coping skills to manage that anxiety, because often with anxiety it's something we don't want to experience, so we want to do whatever we can to get rid of that feeling, but often we need to feel anxiety, and a little bit of anxiety and stress is actually okay, and it's normal to feel like that, and just trying to be yourself, and kind of, I guess anxiety a lot is kind of stressing about what could be, and getting stuck on those thoughts and catastrophizing, thinking the worst. We get kind of stuck into these thought distortions that kind of skew our perception. So yeah, kind of noticing your thoughts and bringing yourself back, I guess, to focusing on a conversation with someone, to actually listen and be fully in that moment with that person and listen, rather than worrying about what you're going to say or what they think about you, and because that's what's going to create the anxiety, if that makes sense.
So having pretty much your idea is good, I think, Alex, having your allies, making sure you've got your friendship
feel
group
safe
there.
And,
I think that sounds good. Yeah.
I've heard the word self-medicating floating around from time to time through like school and news. And what is self-medicating?
It's a good question. So I guess it's for people who maybe have mental health stuff going on, or maybe anxiety, depression, and they're having some really experiencing uncomfortable emotions and thoughts that are quite distressing and overwhelming, and often substances can kind of provide temporary relief for some of those feelings. So often that's a reason why people use, is to kind of dull those uncomfortable feelings and memories and pain from the past or whatever it might be they're trying to get rid of. And it can be, for pain as well. So for people who have chronic pain, they might, feel like the medication they get from their doctor's not enough, so they might drink or they might smoke weed or whatever it is to try and relieve their symptoms themselves.
Why shouldn't people self-medicate?
Well, I guess there's a number of harms and risks associated with, using drugs and alcohol in large amounts and regularly, in terms of mental health and physical health. So, that can also cause social problems. I think I mentioned earlier, like, in relationships can cause issues if you're drinking large amounts and taking lots of drugs. It can impact your life. It can impact the people's lives around you. And there's a number of reasons. And I think, for a lot of people, if they realise that it is an issue for them, then that's kind of a time to maybe reach out for some support and talk to someone about it.
I think I can imagine for some people it would be a bit embarrassing and difficult to reach out. So,
100%,
it can be really difficult. But I guess they could go to the doctors and, they can go with a couple of different issues, and then if you feel comfortable with the doctor, then you could talk about it.
On self-medicating, kind of related, what is the importance of taking the correct dosage of prescriptions? So instead of like self-medicating with others, why should you stick to what you are assigned?
Well, I guess you've got to trust your doctor, and doctors kind of work within, evidence-based treatment models where they know what safe amounts are for people, and I guess we just have to trust that. And I also think that it's worth, with any medication you're prescribed, to ask questions to your doctor, because maybe you're getting some side effects from that medication, and it's a good idea to kind of mention that to your GP, because maybe they need to adjust your dose. And I think it's more about safety and safe levels with, sticking to your prescription. But it is, you do have the right to also question that, and to question being on medication as well, because, it is, I see medication, especially for mental health, as a tool in the toolkit, and it can be good, short term, but I think taking any drug long term is not ideal. So, it's worth continuously reviewing that with your health professionals.
What are withdrawals?
So withdrawals is when you've kind of built up a tolerance to a certain drug, or you've got a physical dependence on a drug. When you stop taking that drug, your body kind of goes into withdrawal. So your body's used to running with that drug in your system, and when you take it away, you can have some uncomfortable symptoms. And depending on the drug, there's different kinds of withdrawal symptoms. And it's worth noting also that withdrawal, if you're using regularly and heavily certain drugs, it actually can be really, really dangerous to go cold turkey, as they say, and to just stop using, especially with alcohol. Alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs to withdraw from, and you can actually die from withdrawing from alcohol, which a lot of people don't know.
Wow.
And also from benzos as well, if you're abusing benzo. I can't say the full word because
benzodiazepine.
And opioids as well, to an extent, can be risky because they can cause seizures.
Is that what would happen with alcohol?
With alcohol, yeah.
Really? Seizures?
Alcohol-related seizures, yep. And so that would be for people who are using daily and drinking daily and larger amounts. Wow. So if you are in that pattern, even if you've been drinking alcohol for 1 or 2 weeks every day, large amounts, you're at risk of serious complications. So and if anyone out there's ever had a seizure, then it's scary. Be really careful and speak to your doctor or speak to a drug and alcohol professional about withdrawal, because it's definitely not safe to just quit cold turkey if you're been using a substance for a long time.
Lacey and I were talking about withdrawing from tobacco the other day, weren't we? We were just talking about the side effects of even just withdrawing from tobacco, and so we're talking about kind of the sweats and things that kind of...
And agitated.
And how it can be quite unpleasant, and that's tobacco.
Totally. And there are different levels of kind of, dependency with certain drugs with tobacco. I think it's, there's psychological, there's the physical, kind of chemical, the habitual as well. It's a habit that you get kind of stuck into. It's really hard to But yeah, definitely there's those physical withdrawals.
The behavioural one's interesting. I had a friend who was trying to give up smoking and had gotten into the habit. This is at a time where, like, we had a lot of phones that were just on cords, and her habit was that she would sit, every time the phone rang, she would sit down with a cigarette. It was just like a habit, and she hadn't even realised that when she was on the phone, she had a cigarette. And so just even recognising that habit really helped her kind of break.
Yeah, and be aware of that. And
yeah.
notice it, yeah.
And some people, like, when they wake up, they have a cigarette. I mean, sorry, everybody, yuck. It doesn't seem like the first
Coffee and a cigarette.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't seem like something I'd like. But just that can just be a habit as well. So amazing.
What you mentioned seizures relating to alcohol withdrawal. What are some other common withdrawal symptoms?
So, I guess depending on the drug, the common ones I guess are can include sweating, shakiness, nightmares, or difficulty sleeping. Can impact sleep quite a lot. Gastrointestinal things, like it can cause diarrhea or constipation, nausea, irritability, all kinds of different things, quite uncomfortable. So I think depending on the drug too, it can be different, but...
Not very nice.
No. So it can be very uncomfortable, which is why it's difficult, I think.
Yeah.
And often it's a good idea to, if you're going to withdraw, to actually do it in a safe way, so medical detox, either residential, which means you go to a hospital or a detox facility, or you do it at home with a professional helping you through that process to be. And there's also medications that can help with withdrawal symptoms that a doctor can prescribe. Just temporarily while you're going through that process, not get hooked on a new drug. So just a short term kind of to help you through that uncomfortable feelings and symptoms.
So Alex, do you see, or do you reckon at school there's much drug use or alcohol use or abuse?
Not in my year level that I know of. Well, not drug related anyway. Like, I've heard stories of some of my friend groups, like alcohol's a big thing.
So would it be outside of school you would come across that more? Or
outside of school, like not in school.
Okay. That's good.
And I think it's like there's a misconception that young people are like crazy and they take all these drugs and alcohol, and it's actually not true. Like, it's actually the rate of drug use and alcohol use is actually decreasing as the years go by. So it's actually, I think the messaging out there, and there's a lot more of this stuff in the media around the harms, and young people are smart. Like, they understand this stuff, and
There was a lot more, like, I can see the change. There was a lot more, like, a lot more smoking when I was year 7 and 8. Like,
As in tobacco?
Tobacco. There was the smokers tree, like...
Oh, we had the smokers tree.
Not there anymore though.
They took the tree down and everyone stopped smoking. Is that right?
Teachers patrolled more and they started to stop, or at least did it in other places, like less so in different places. So
So there's less. You think there's less smoking now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've noticed that too.
Wow.
And I think maybe more stigma around it now. Like, people know the health risks, and it's kind of like, oh, you're smoking. Whereas when I was younger, it was more like it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
So people, I want to be cool, I'm going to smoke.
There's more health messages out there. That's true.
So we've covered what an overdose is, like the toxins related. What do you do if you suspect someone has overdosed on, say, a drug? Like...
Yeah, well, I think if you're concerned about a friend, to call 000, because people can die from drug overdose. So I think the safest thing to do is, better to be safe than sorry, because people do die. So it's not worth the risk, I guess.
I also suggest doing a first aid course, at
Yeah,
least
it
the
can be
CPR component, just because that's only a one-day thing.
Yeah, because if someone's heart stops, you might need to keep them alive until the ambulance arrives. Yeah.
Can I just ask? We were talking about smoking a minute ago. Is smoking considered to be drug use?
Well, yeah. Tobacco is a stimulant drug, so it is a drug. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
do you think people that smoke think that they're using drugs?
I think people who smoke, and also people who drink alcohol, I don't think people really connect those things as drugs because they're legal. Yeah, because they're legal and it's accepted to a point. Especially alcohol, that it's you might not realise. But they're the two that cause the most harm.
Absolutely.
Some people say that they're more creative when under the influence of drugs. Like, I know a couple of like musos or playwrights even who right under the influence. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I am pretty open-minded, and everybody has the right to do whatever they want to do, and if some people feel that drug use enhances their experience and helps them create, then, cool. But I guess, if it becomes a problem for them, if they become dependent on that substance to be creative, say if they're a performer and they're needing, to take drugs to be able to do what they do, then that could become an issue. I guess there's the health risks and stuff. But, if you're doing it safely and it's helping you to kind of do what you do, then sure.
Cool. So, what are our final thoughts? Do we want to add anything? Or?
Just thanks, Julia.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Julia.
thanks, guys. It's been fun.
I think for me, the message probably is don't hesitate to ring 000, I suppose.
Yeah, be safe and watch out for your friends as well. It's good to have someone who's not taking drugs or drinking when you're out with your friends. Just, have someone keeping an eye on things. It's a good idea too. So, stay safe.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Alex.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you for
thanks,
letting me host.
Goodbye for now.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.